I had suffered from headaches for years. To find the cause, I went for an MRI. Halfway through, the doctor's face changed. "What is this doing here?" My heart raced. On the screen, something unexplainable appeared. I was frozen. I just stared in silence. The headaches had started as whispers of pain, easily dismissed with a couple of Advil and a strong cup of coffee. But over 3 years, they morphed into sledgehammers pounding against my skull, leaving me curled up in darkened rooms, praying for relief that never came. My husband, David, kept suggesting I see someone, but I'd brushed him off. I was only 34. What could be wrong? Finally, after a particularly brutal episode that left me vomiting in our bathroom at 3 a.m., I relented. Dr. Martinez at Cleveland General was thorough, ordering the MRI without hesitation. "Let's see what's going on in that head of yours, Catherine," he'd said with a reassuring smile. The machine was a metal tomb, clicking and humming as I lay perfectly still, trying to focus on anything but the claustrophobic sensation creeping up my throat. Through the observation window, I could see the technician, Rebecca, her face neutral and professional as she monitored the screens. Then everything changed. Rebecca's expression shifted. Her eyebrows furrowed, and she leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. She pressed a button and spoke into her headset, her voice muffled but urgent. Within moments, Dr. Martinez appeared, his usual calm demeanor replaced by something I couldn't quite identify. Concern? Confusion? Fear? He stared at the monitor, his mouth slightly agape. Then he whispered those words that would haunt me forever. "What is this doing here?" My stomach dropped like a stone. Through the intercom, I managed to croak, "Doctor, is everything okay?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned closer to the screen, his finger tracing something I couldn't see. When he finally looked at me through the glass, his eyes held a mixture of disbelief and alarm that made my blood run cold. "Catherine, we need to talk," he said, his voice steady but strained. "Let's get you out of there first." As the machine's noise died away and the platform slid me back into the world, I caught a glimpse of the screen. Among the gray and white shadows of my brain scan, something glinted. Something that had sharp, defined edges. Something metallic. Something that absolutely should not have been inside my head. My hands trembled as I sat up, the hospital gown suddenly feeling like tissue paper against my skin. Whatever Dr. Martinez had seen, whatever was lurking inside my skull, I knew my life had just taken a turn from which there would be no return. The questions crashed over me like a tsunami. How? When? Who? And most terrifying of all, why? The silence in that sterile room stretched until I thought my nerves might snap from the tension. Dr. Martinez motioned for Rebecca to leave us alone, waiting until the door clicked shut before turning back to me. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, as if the walls themselves might be listening. "Catherine, I don't want to alarm you unnecessarily," he began, pulling up a chair beside the examination table. "But this shouldn't be here." He gestured toward the monitor, enlarging the image until I could see it clearly. It wasn't a tumor. I'd spent countless sleepless nights Googling my symptoms, studying brain scans of every possible condition. This was different. This had edges, clean, unnatural edges that caught the light of the scanner like a beacon. "Metallic density," Dr. Martinez muttered, more to himself than to me. "No surgical history in your file. No medical implants on record. No childhood accidents that would explain." He caught himself, realizing he was thinking out loud. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Doctor, are you telling me there's metal in my brain?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Something foreign. Something that appears to have been placed there." The word placed hit me like a physical blow. Placed? By whom? Dr. Martinez removed his glasses and rubbed his temples, suddenly looking older than his 50-something years. "Catherine, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I'm going to make some calls, discreetly. But for now, I need you to promise me something. Don't discuss this with anyone. Not David, not your sister Emma, not anyone." A chill ran down my spine. "Why? Why can't I tell my own husband?" He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. "Because whoever put this there didn't want you to find out. And if they discover you have..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You could be in serious danger." My legs felt like jelly as I stumbled out of Cleveland General, clutching the sealed envelope containing my MRI scans like a lifeline. The parking lot looked the same, cars glinting in the afternoon sun, people walking to and from appointments, life continuing as normal. But everything felt different now, as if I'd stepped through a looking glass into a world where nothing was as it seemed. During the drive home to our house in Lakewood, I kept checking my rearview mirror. Was that blue Toyota following me? Had it been there when I left the hospital? My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. David was in the kitchen when I arrived, preparing his famous meatloaf for dinner. "Hey, honey. How did it go?" His smile was warm, genuine. The same smile I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. "Fine," I managed, forcing my lips into what I hoped resembled a smile. "Just routine stuff. Results in a few days." But as I watched him season the meat, chatting about his day at the accounting firm, a terrible thought crept into my mind. How well did I really know my husband? How well did anyone really know the people closest to them? That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to David's steady breathing beside me. The MRI envelope sat in my nightstand drawer, sealed and secret. Every shadow seemed to shift and move in the darkness, and I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, someone was watching. Someone who knew exactly what was inside my head. Someone who was waiting to see what I'd do next. Sleep became a foreign concept. I spent the following nights lying rigid in bed, every sound amplified in the darkness. The house settling, the neighbor's cat prowling our fence, David's occasional snore, all of it felt loaded with menace. On the third night after the MRI, my phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. Unknown number. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering as I debated whether to answer. Finally, on the fourth ring, I picked up. "Hello?" Silence. Then, a soft click. I lay there the rest of the night, eyes wide open, watching shadows dance across our bedroom ceiling. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself it was nothing, a wrong number, a telemarketer's robocle gone wrong. But when I stepped outside to grab the newspaper, the street looked different. A black Chevy Suburban sat parked across from our house, windows tinted dark enough that I couldn't see inside. I'd never noticed it before, but something about it felt wrong. Too clean. Too purposeful. "Morning, Catherine." Our neighbor Mrs. O'Brien waved from her garden, breaking me out of my trance. I waved back, forcing a smile, but my eyes kept drifting back to that SUV. At work, my usual routine felt surreal. I taught my third-grade class at Lincoln Elementary as if nothing had changed, helping little Timmy with his multiplication tables and mediating disputes over playground equipment. But even there, I felt watched. The principal, Mr. Henderson, seemed to linger near my classroom more than usual. The new substitute teacher kept glancing my way during lunch. My email inbox became a source of dread. Normal messages from the school district and parent communications were punctuated by strange anomalies. An email with no subject line and a blank attachment. Another from a string of numbers instead of a name. Some questions are better left unasked. By Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my college roommate, Lisa, now a cybersecurity specialist in Chicago. We'd been through everything together, sorority drama, bad breakups, the death of her father. If anyone could help me make sense of this digital harassment, it was her. We met at O'Malley's Tavern, a dimly lit Irish pub in downtown Cleveland, far from Lakewood and prying eyes. Lisa's face grew pale as she examined the strange emails on her laptop. "Catherine, this isn't random spam or some teenage hacker playing games," she said, her voice barely audible over the Celtic music playing overhead. "These IP addresses are masked through multiple proxy servers, military-grade stuff. And this code embedded in the blank attachment." She paused, running her fingers through her auburn hair. "This is government-level encryption." My whiskey suddenly tasted like ash. Government. Lisa leaned across the table, lowering her voice even further. "Not the kind that helps people, Kath. The kind that makes people disappear." I gripped my glass so hard I thought it might shatter. David thought I was having dinner with my sister. He had no idea I was sitting in a tavern, learning that my life had become a nightmare I didn't understand. But one thing was crystal clear: someone wasn't just watching me. They were protecting whatever secret was buried in my brain. And if they thought fear would keep me quiet, they were about to learn they'd picked the wrong woman to mess with. The question was, who could I trust when the very ground beneath my feet had turned to quicksand? Paranoia, I learned, is a living thing. It grows in the spaces between certainty and doubt, feeding on every sideways glance and unexplained coincidence. By the time I got home from my meeting with Lisa, it had taken root in my chest like a thorny vine. David was waiting at the kitchen table, grading papers from his students at the community college. "How was dinner with Emma?" he asked without looking up from his red pen. "Good," I replied, hanging my coat on the hook by the door. "She's thinking about getting a dog." It was such a simple lie, but it felt enormous in my mouth. David just nodded, making notes on some poor student's essay about the American Revolution. His complete lack of suspicion should have been comforting. Instead, it made me wonder what else he accepted without question. That night, I tested a theory. "Honey, I might need to go back for another MRI, I said as we brushed our teeth before bed. "Dr. Martinez wants a follow-up scan." David's toothbrush paused for just a fraction of a second. "Oh? Everything okay?" "He just wants to be thorough," I said, watching his reflection in the bathroom mirror. "That's good," he said, but his smile seemed forced. "Better safe than sorry." It was nothing. A tiny hesitation that could mean anything or nothing at all. But once doubt plants its seed, every interaction becomes suspect. The next morning, I decided to visit my father. Dad lived alone now in the house where I'd grown up in Mentor, about 30 minutes east of Cleveland. He was a retired Marine Corps intelligence officer, a man who'd spent his career reading between lines and seeing patterns others missed. If anyone could help me make sense of this situation, it was him. I found him in his garage, working on his vintage 1967 Mustang. His hands were still steady despite his 72 years, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed even for mechanical work. "Katie girl," he said, using my childhood nickname. "This is a surprise. Everything all right?" I told him everything. The headaches, the MRI, the strange emails, the surveillance. I expected him to tell me I was being paranoid, that stress was making me see threats where none existed. Instead, he set down his wrench and really looked at me for the first time since I'd arrived. His expression was grave, almost resigned. "You're not sick, Katie," he said finally. "You're carrying something. And they want to make sure you never realize what it is." My blood turned to ice water. "What do you mean?" He wiped his hands on an old rag, choosing his words carefully. "Your mother knew. Before the cancer took her, she made me promise something. She said if you ever started having symptoms, if you ever went looking for answers." He trailed off, lost in a memory that clearly pained him. "Dad, you're scaring me." He turned to face me fully, his eyes sharp with something between sorrow and fear. "She said they'd come for you. That they'd been watching since you were born, waiting." The garage felt like it was spinning around me. "Who? Who's been watching?" But before he could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from David, "Hey beautiful, stuck late at the college. Don't wait up. Love you." It was 2 p.m. on a Saturday. David hadn't taught Saturday classes in 3 years. My father saw my expression change. "What is it?" I showed him the text, and his face darkened. "Katie, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Trust no one. Not your friends, not your neighbors." He paused, his voice heavy with regret. "And especially not your husband." As I drove home through the winding streets of Mentor, my hand shaking on the steering wheel, one thought kept echoing in my mind. If David was lying about where he was, what else had he been lying about? And more terrifying still, how long had I been living with a stranger? I drove around for hours after leaving my father's house, unable to face going home. My mind raced through 8 years of marriage, searching for signs I'd missed, moments that might have been clues. David's occasional business trips that seemed vague when I asked for details. The way he sometimes knew things about my schedule I was certain I hadn't mentioned. The fact that he'd been so supportive of me getting the MRI, almost pushing me toward it. Had he known what they'd find? Finally, as the sun began to set over Lake Erie, I returned to our house in Lakewood. David's Honda Civic sat in the driveway, which meant he'd been home for hours despite his text about being stuck at work. My stomach clenched as I parked behind it. Inside, he was cooking dinner, his special carbonara that usually meant he was feeling romantic or guilty about something. "Hey, babe. How was your dad?" "Fine," I said, studying his face. "How was work?" "Thought you were staying late." "Finished earlier than expected," he said smoothly, stirring the pasta. "You know how it is with grading, sometimes it goes faster than you think." Another lie. So casual, so practiced. How many others had there been? That night, I pretended to take the sleeping pills he'd started leaving on my nightstand. For your headaches, he'd said. They'll help you rest. Instead, I palmed them and flushed them down the bathroom sink. Around midnight, I heard it. Soft footsteps in the hallway, then the quiet click of David's study door. I waited 10 minutes, then crept out of bed and down the hall. A thin line of light showed beneath his door, and I could hear his voice, low and urgent. Symptoms are progressing faster than expected, he was saying. She's starting to ask questions. No, she doesn't suspect anything yet, but... My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he'd hear it through the door. I pressed my ear closer. The headaches are a good sign. It means the device is integrating properly. What? No, I can manage her. I've been doing this for 8 years, haven't I? Device. The word hit me like a physical blow. Whatever was in my brain, David knew about it. Had always known about it. Just give me a few more weeks, he continued. Once the final phase is complete, you'll have everything you need. I backed away from the door, my legs threatening to give out. 8 years. Our entire marriage had been a lie. Every I love you, every shared dream, every moment of intimacy, all of it had been performance, manipulation. I made it back to bed just as his study door opened. David padded quietly to the bedroom, slipping under the covers beside me. He even had the audacity to kiss my forehead gently, whispering "Sleep well, beautiful." I lay there in the darkness, my husband's breathing steady beside me, and realized I was completely alone. Not just physically, but existentially. The man I trusted with my heart, my body, my entire life, was part of whatever nightmare had been unfolding around me since birth. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I would remain passive, that fear would keep me compliant. They'd underestimated the daughter of a Marine intelligence officer. If David and whoever he worked for wanted to play games with my mind, my life, my very identity, they were about to learn that Catherine Marie Walsh didn't go down without a fight. The war for my life was about to begin, and I intended to win it. I spent the next week becoming someone I'd never been before, a spy in my own life. Every conversation with David became a chess match, every interaction a careful dance around the truth. He had no idea I knew about his midnight phone calls, no clue that his devoted wife was now his most dangerous enemy. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy. I still taught my third graders, still graded their spelling tests, still tucked them in for story time after recess. But underneath my cheerful teacher facade, I was planning. First, I needed proof. Lisa had taught me enough about digital security to know that audio recordings could be powerful weapons if used correctly. I downloaded an app on my phone that would record ambient sound and automatically upload to a cloud server Lisa had set up for me. The second night of recording, I hit the jackpot. David's voice came through crystal clear. The integration is nearly complete. Subject shows all expected neurological markers. Headaches, disorientation, minor memory gaps, exactly as predicted. My blood ran cold. Memory gaps? I'd been attributing my recent forgetfulness to stress, but what if it was something more sinister? Yes, she's completely unaware, David continued. 8 years of conditioning has made her entirely dependent on me for emotional stability. When the final activation occurs, she'll be fully compliant. Activation. The word made my skin crawl. Whatever device was in my brain, it wasn't just monitoring me, it was designed to control me. Timeline remains on schedule. 2 more weeks, and Project Mindbridge will be ready for full implementation. Mindbridge. Finally, a name for whatever hell I'd been living in. The recording was damning, but I needed more. I needed to know who David was really working for, and I needed leverage to protect myself. That's when I remembered something my father had taught me during my rebellious teenage years: information is power, Catergirl. But timing is everything. The next evening, I played my ace. Over dinner, David's famous pot roast with mashed potatoes, I dropped my bombshell. I've been thinking, I said, cutting into my meat with deliberate casualness. Maybe we should start trying for a baby. David's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. For just a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped, and I saw something that chilled me to the bone: panic. A baby? He recovered quickly, but I'd seen enough. Don't you think we should wait until your headaches are under control? Actually, I've been feeling much better lately, I lied smoothly. Almost like whatever was wrong is fixing itself. This time, he couldn't hide his reaction. His face went pale, and I saw him swallow hard. That's great, honey. But maybe we should wait until the doctors give you a clean bill of health. I was thinking of calling Dr. Martinez tomorrow, I continued, watching David's face like a hawk watches a mouse. Maybe getting another MRI. To compare with the first one. David set down his fork entirely now. Catherine, I don't think that's necessary. Dr. Martinez said everything looked normal, right? Another lie. Dr. Martinez had never said any such thing. You're right, I said, smiling sweetly. I'm probably just being paranoid. That night, I heard David on the phone again, his voice more urgent than before. She's talking about another MRI. And kids. We need to accelerate the timeline. No, I can't control her completely yet. The device isn't fully integrated. What do you mean, contain the situation? A long pause, then, you're talking about termination? She's my wife, for God's sake. Yes, I understand the stakes, but… Fine. If that's what it takes. Termination. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. I lay in bed, listening to my husband, the man who'd vowed to love and protect me, casually discuss ending my life, and felt something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. They wanted to play for keeps? Fine. But they were about to learn that cornering a desperate woman was the most dangerous game of all. The end came faster than I'd expected. The next morning, David made me breakfast, blueberry pancakes, my favorite, with a side of fresh orange juice. He was being unusually attentive, kissing my cheek, telling me how much he loved me. I almost drank the juice. Something in his overly solicitous behavior set off alarm bells. When he went upstairs to shower, I quickly tested the juice with a home drug testing kit Lisa had given me just in case. The strip turned bright red. Rohypnol. Date rape drug. My loving husband was planning to drug me. Instead of confronting him, I poured the juice down the sink and refilled the glass with clean juice, adding a few drops of food coloring to match the original tint. Then I waited. 20 minutes after I'd supposedly drunk the drug juice, I began to act drowsy. I feel so tired suddenly, I told David, letting my words slur slightly. His eyes lit up with what I can only describe as relief mixed with anticipation. Why don't you go lie down, honey? I'll clean up here. I stumbled to the couch in our living room, making sure to leave my phone partially visible under throw pillow, still recording. Then I closed my eyes and evened out my breathing, pretending to be unconscious. It didn't take long. Within minutes, I heard David on the phone. She's under. Yes, completely sedated. How long before the team arrives? Team. My stomach clenched, but I forced myself to remain limp and breathing steadily. Understood. I'll have her ready for transport. Transport. They weren't just planning to activate some device in my brain, they were planning to take me somewhere. Somewhere I'd never come back from. I heard David approach the couch. Catherine, he whispered. Honey. I didn't respond. He shook my shoulder gently, then with more force. Satisfied that I was unconscious, he began moving around the house with sudden efficiency. I heard him in the bedroom, packing what sounded like a suitcase. Drawers opening and closing. The safe in his closet being opened. Through slitted eyes, I watched him carry a black duffel bag to the kitchen table and begin laying out items that made my blood freeze. Zip ties, duct tape, what looked like medical equipment. That's when I knew I was out of time. As quietly as I could, I reached for my phone and sent a pre-written text to Lisa, Wonderland. It was our code word, developed years ago during a particularly paranoid phase after watching too many conspiracy movies. It meant, call the cavalry now. David was in the garage. I could hear him moving things around, probably preparing for my transport. I had maybe 10 minutes before his mysterious team arrived. I grabbed the spare car keys from the kitchen drawer and David's laptop from his study. If I was going down, I was taking Project Mindbridge with me. As I slipped out the back door, I could hear vehicles approaching from the front of the house. Black SUVs, just like the ones that had been watching me for weeks. But I was already gone, driving David's Honda toward downtown Cleveland, toward the FBI field office where Lisa's contact was waiting for me. In the rearview mirror, I saw our house receding into the distance. 8 years of my life, 8 years of lies and manipulation and love that had never been real. But I was alive. And I had evidence. As I drove through the morning traffic, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Whatever device was in my brain, whoever had put it there, they'd made one fatal error. They'd forgotten that the human spirit, when cornered and betrayed and pushed beyond all limits, doesn't just survive. It fights back. And I was just getting started.